Okay, so welcome to the Node.js Technical Steering Committee meeting for November 13th, 2024. We will follow our standard approach of going through the agenda that was created in issue number 1649 in the repo. Before we get started, does anybody have any announcements they'd like to share?
Node.js 18 dot 20.5 came out yesterday, and also a Node.js 23.2.0 also came out, I think, the beginning of this week.
Okay. Any other announcements? Okay, if not, just a reminder to nominate people for the contributor spotlight. Based on discussions on the collaborator summit last week, it does seem important to make sure we recognize people and their contributions. So if you have somebody you see doing good work, please nominate them. In terms of CPC and board meeting updates, we don't have any of our representatives, so I'm just going to say no updates this week, unless anybody else has one. Okay, if not, we can move on to the first issue that was tagged, which was test improve zlib tests. This is number 55716, and I don't know if whoever added that is here and you want to jump into the discussion, go for it.
I was taking a look at that, and basically, it seems Luigi requested change because Yagis is changing the test to use the node test instead of our current workflow, and YAG is flagged as TSC agenda, but no information.
Well, I think it's a block from Luigi that is the issue here. So I think in general it's a question: should we rewrite all our node tests to use the node test runner?
I think we had that discussion before, right?
And what did we end up?
I think we end up with some folks from TSC agreeing that we don't need to put a requirement to use the node test, and we should rely on our internal test workflow, and that's fine. But there's no objection also on using node test. So either way.
But then should we, because the problem here is, do we override Luigi's objection or not? His objection is that he doesn't want the tests to be rewritten to node test runner because he doesn't see that it adds value and it does add potential problems.
I think his point is more about adding more complexity to the test instead of changing to no test, which I agree that the test became a bit more complex. I don't know. To be honest, I don't think that's something that TSC should discuss. They just need to agree on something. And I think it's too early to call for a vote, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't quite see what is the next step there in that issue though, because Luigi is saying that he's -1 on using node test.
Yeah, I think even at the Node Conf, there was like a session which was a mini code and learn, and I may have misunderstood, but I actually thought that some of the things they had people working on were converting tests over to use the node test. So that would mean to be at least some people thought that was the way to go.
Yeah, yeah. There's more nuance to that, but yes, what you're saying is technically true.
Can you promote Matteo?
What's the nuance? What's the nuance, just for fun?
So I was asking, I was talking with some of the collaborators that was involved with that, and I knew some of them were actually against using rewriting things into node test. So I was a little confused why they were using that as the task. But basically, it was a simple task, and it doesn't mean that it needs to be merged, just because
Right, okay.
people are doing it.
Michael,
Yeah.
Can you
Oh, yeah,
promote
we got
Matteo?
Matteo
Like
there.
he's
Sorry.
promote-
Okay.
Yeah.
Promoting Matteo. Yep. Thanks.
But this is going to be a contentious issue. I mean, we can leave it and see what happens on that PR, but I don't see much happening, and I think this is one of those things where we could be a little bit more proactive before people get so frustrated that they just throw their hands up in the air.
Yeah, I wouldn't want somebody to spend a whole bunch of time moving it over if in the end it's just like, well, we don't want to do that, right? Like,
So, and the question, I guess, is what's the value in rewriting all our tests into no test?
right.
I think the
Right.
value is more for other runtimes, like for the web workers, for the Cloudflare workers. It's easy for them to rely on node test instead of or internal workflow.
Yeah,
Matteo has his hand up.
Hi guys. So the my take here is, and I would propose we codify this as a rule. Okay, we are absolutely okay in using node test for internal tests. Okay, for anything that is not used by node test.
I think you just short-circuited my mind. What do you mean?
So okay, so node test as a certain dependencies, right?
Yep.
It depends on streams. It depends on event emitter. It depends on next tick. It depends on certain things like that. Okay. I don't know. Those can be listed. Okay. If it's not used, if the if the task, the test is need to cover a functionality in HTTP, which is not used by the test, okay, by the test framework, then absolutely we can use the test framework. If we want to use the test framework, the node test to test streams, we shouldn't.
That's fine.
Okay, I think I would be very opposed to that change. Okay, or event emitter, I will be very opposed to that change, because we can get in a situation where a change in event emitter will break the test framework, making it impossible to run the test.
But
Yeah,
what
I
happened?
think that's fair. But if we go back to this specific issue with zlib, so I think what Jaggis wants to do is to rewrite all the zlib tests to use the node test runner, so that worker D can, also run the zlib tests.
This is where I'm going. Okay, we
Yep.
could do this, and I think it would be improve our code, the maintainability in our test a lot. Okay, but only for the parts that are not covered by, and I think it's a benefit and a net benefit to Node. Okay, but only for the parts that are not used by the test framework itself. Or
How
with
does it improve the maintainability?
So the biggest thing for me is we have in a lot of places where we have multiple tests running in parallel inside the same file. Okay, especially with opening scopes or functions and things like that. Okay, we have quite a few of them that have a mini tab or mini test framework built in each file. This is horrible code. Okay, and it makes it very, very hard to read those files. And the only way to actually select a bunch of code to run is literally to comment the rest. Okay. And in a lot of cases, you have conflicts between the tests and bad interactions, making things sometimes very flaky. Okay. In the generic case, I think that pattern should be avoided. And we should either split them in individual files, or if we need a complex thing, use our test harness.
I think we could also measure the performance of running the test, because if we are changing most of the code base to use the node test, and it will make the test to run, I don't know, for more 30 minutes, I don't think it's a good choice. I don't think no one have measured that, but I'm under the impression that using our internal test suite is way faster.
Yeah,
I
like
think
I'm
there's
just
also,
go ahead.
there is a high level objective here also that we could consider. I mean, the idea here is that other platforms can run the node tests, for example, to build their own zlib variation. And how could that benefit the node? Well, maybe the worker D or whatever starts working on a zlib implementation that would be node compatible, and then node could use that as well, or collaborate with worker D on the zlib implementation that is used. So I think on a high level, this could maybe allow, or long term, allow us to collaborate with other runtimes on specific stuff.
As a silly question, maybe, like, how does moving to something which is like a test runner, which is specifically tied to Node, make it easier for other runtimes to run the test? It almost seems like that would be the opposite. If we use some external test runner, that seems easier for other runtimes to use versus one which we built in and which is specific to Node.
I think the test runner they can at least run. What we have today, they can't run.
Okay, it just seems intuitive to me. Like my first thought is it's going in the wrong direction, but obviously there's something I'm not understanding on that front.
I think in the issue that have been discussed about moving tests to node test, someone raised the point that the common or internal test suite rely on a bunch of internals, Node.js internals, making a bit hard to propagate it to other runtimes. But there are two different perspectives, which I agree on both, which is supporting different runtimes, like allowing other runtimes to use our test, and also it doesn't benefit Node.js in the end, in my opinion. If someone is willing to do that change, I wouldn't oppose to it, but I think we should be a bit careful on that. If we are reducing, for instance, the time elapsed for CI to run, currently it takes a long time, and if we are increasing it it will affect the maintenance of Node.js in general. So someone might want to measure that before making the change.
Well, I mean, I just want to go back to the theoretical advantage for Node. For example, we have parts of Node that are not maintained well. For example, web streams. So if we could get some kind of collaboration with the other runtimes to have a common web streams implementation that is maintained by the other runtimes as well, that would benefit Node as a project. This is
I'd agree
very
with that.
theoretical, though.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think I'd even go to if we had some collaboration on the test suite, like if we, if there's multiple people using the same test suite and there's flaky issues, they may be motivated to help improve that test suite too, right? So I can see some benefits of even if it's just the test suite part, but I guess that's probably it would versus hey, here's like you said, the big question is like, is that something that the project agrees as something we want to pursue and support? Chenzong has his hand up.
Yeah, I'm wondering with the argument about the compatibility with other runtimes, that with my experience with standardization test suite, they usually use like WPT or test262 for ECMAScript. They usually use a vanilla test framework, just like Node.js, for a single file, because that makes the compatibility between runtimes more easier, because they don't depend on a specific Node.js specific test framework. So that's not quite intuitive to me to move into a Node.js internal test framework instead of file-based test suite.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of saying. So, okay, Robert, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt you, Michael, all the time. I think that's an excellent point. If the end goal here is to create, a Node platform test library, which I think is a valid end goal, maybe we should first discuss if Node test is the right way to achieve that. Even, I think that's a totally valid conversation.
Yeah, that's where I was wondering too. So I think that's the like why is the node one like Dino was going to run the same tests or Bun or whatever workers? How can they run the node with the node test framework versus some vanilla one is?
I think it would be interesting to have James or Juggis in on this conversation.
Yeah, maybe they have some.
Yeah, I think we can leave it to the next week and discuss it again. Maybe we'll have more feedback on that particular pull request.
I think that's a good idea too.
We might want to ping Luigi to join if he wants to.
That would make sense.
But I think we have people in the TSC that is on the Luigi end of the scale also. So
Okay.
Yeah, like help us understand why it's the right way to go, and then
I think, for example, Ruben has also some opinions on this matter. So maybe start there before inviting people. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But it would be good if we are trying to be a little bit proactive on this one.
I agree. So let's leave on the agenda, and hopefully we'll have Yagas and or Rich or James next time, and we can see if we can answer some of those questions we were just talking about. Anything more on that one before we move on to the next issue?
Nope.
Okay, the next one is assert add partial deep strict equal. This is number 54630. I don't know if anybody has context, wants to lead the discussion on that one. I'm just opening it up.
Yeah, I also took a look at that and looks like people involved on that issue are not in the call.
Okay, so we should just skip until next time.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so the next one is number 1054, enforce a more strict policy for December major releases.
Yeah, it has been merged, but it's worth it to mention in this call before removing the label. Basically, on every major release, it's very frustrating for the releaser or people involved in the release to land several major pull requests a few weeks or a few days before the release because it's hard to test and the release candidates doesn't go out to people to test with a reasonable time. So with these pull requests that got landed, we will sync the main branch and the next major release a month prior to the release. And then we will not land any several major pull request to that specific branch anymore. And so if you land a pull request in the middle, like 15 days before the December major release, it won't go to that specific major release. It will go to the next one. So we will have plenty of time to run CGIM a lot of times because usually seven major releases will break people, and we need to assess that, evaluate if that's expected or not. And also we will provide release candidates to vendors or libraries so they can test it before the release goes out. So they will have plenty of time to adapt their code to the new to the new change, and that's it. So this is just for awareness, and it got closed. So I will do the next major release of Node.js 24, and I will make sure to make it happen.
Okay. Okay. Any other discussion of the on that one before we move on? Okay, if not, I on to the next one, which is add vetted courses. This is number 7201. I think Mateo, you added that one.
Sorry, which issue?
It's number 7201, add vetted courses
Yes.
related to the
Okay.
ambassador
Yes.
program.
Yes. So the okay. So I added it mostly for visibility. Okay. The fundamental problem that a lot of people have flagged is how do I learn Node.js? Okay. And how do I learn Node.js from a source that is considered up to date and good for the framework for us? So far, we do not do this. Okay. And we are in the position instead to actually do it now. So I think it's something that it will help the community overall. Okay. Providing a link, where do I learn Node is not written in our website. Okay. Our website do not provide this information. Okay. And therefore people resort to, all sort of random choice things. Okay. Which in a lot of cases teach bad practices. Or old practices, not even bad practices, but stuff that's old, 2015 old, okay? Like Express with callbacks. Okay. Sorry to be calling out Express 4 with callbacks, but this is the situation. Okay. Or maybe they ignore all the new stuff that we shipped with streams, or they ignore all the or they don't explain how to integrate promises in the code base. Okay. Or they don't even notice that there is a set timeout version that is a promise and don't even teach that. Okay. There are a lot of small things that can be taught, or they even notice that they only use CommonJS instead of ESM, for example. Okay. There is a lot of those that we can discuss about.
I wonder if like we could have a section on the website which is like content from our ambassadors.
Yes, essentially. That's the
right.
that
Like,
would,
that I think what you're suggesting is like, hey, we've got nominated some ambassadors. We believe like, we're trusting them to build content we think will be more up to date,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
And then like a natural extension to that is like, okay, well, let's actually have a place on the website where we're like, hey, we're going to promote content from those ambassadors.
yes.
That
I
might
just
be,
wonder-
we don't necessarily need to say like promoted by the project, but like transitively, like here are the ambassadors we've identified and here's their content.
Yes, that's the intent.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I just wonder that there are two links you posted in the
Yes.
issue. The first one is free, and the second one is paid. And I wonder if we could promote paid courses.
I am. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
To our users, since even paid courses get out of date in a single release, and most of the content should be available publicly on node.js.org.
Matteo has his hand up again.
I think we should link. Like, I don't think private or free or public things, it doesn't matter. From my point of view, we should probably try to provide a mix of free and public and commercial content. Okay. Not limited.
Sorry.
Not limited to free. Like, again, these people need to make money. Okay. Producing content, producing courses takes a lot of time, huge amount of effort. Okay. Those
I'm
people.
just. I'm sorry. I think I'm
need to be
getting
compensated.
network issues.
That's the problem. So if we need to compensate them, either we compensate them directly
Mhm.
or we let them pay for themselves.
But how do we guarantee that, for instance, these open precedents for other ambassadors to link to their course, to their paid courses as well? And how do we guarantee that their courses are teaching the right thing? Because I doubt we will watch all of the courses.
Well, that's what I said. Somebody needs to take a look.
Okay, so you have someone to take a look on all the courses and make sure that they are up to date?
Well, it's part of the programs. So as part of the ambassador program, if we want their courses to be promoted by the Node.js socials and stuff, somebody from us needs to take a look. So
well, that's not quite the way we've set it up. The way we've set it up is there's the opportunity for somebody to take a look, but there's no requirement that somebody takes a look. So like, and I think it comes a little bit back to trust, right? Like, you know, if we've said that like, hey, here's some collaborator or some ambassadors we trust to do the right thing, we don't have time to look at all these things and review them all, right? And like that's the challenge. If we make that a requirement, then we're not going to do anything. And so this is the program itself is an attempt to say like, yeah, there'll be the opportunity, but if it doesn't happen, then we trust them to go and promote it. And if they start to promote things which don't make any sense, then we'll revisit and like, you know, maybe they're no longer ambassadors, right? Like that's kind of the approach there.
Yeah, well, yes, but they need to give us the access to those courses.
Right, exactly. Like I think that's a fair
That's
ask to say like, you know, we'd like content. We could have a new section on the website, which is like content from our ambassadors, but as part of that, we would like access to them. And so like if it's a paid course, we would like the access, like the ask is that they give access to whatever number of people from the project to go through it. And then not that will happen, but like there's the opportunity for it to happen, I think is what fits the model.
Yep, that's the idea. I agree with that.
Okay, so that's number 701. People can sort of comment in there and we can continue the discussion. Like I think the end point of this issue would be like a PR to the ambassador program that would add, you know, currently we have the ability for them to request, you know, social promotion of content. We've got the process of like getting some feedback on it. We could add a section there that says like, in addition to this, each ambassador will have a section on the website where they can list, you know, a certain set of content, but again, it needs to go through that same process of like opportunity for review before it's actually put up there. So I think if there's concerns and stuff, we can continue the discussion in that issue of to like how exactly it should work or what content can be included or not, that kind of stuff. Any more discussion on that one before we move to the next issue? Okay, Feet Add Streams Guide. This is number 7123. Again, I don't know if anybody has I see Matteo, you've commented a fair amount on it, but I'm just seeing who put it on the agenda.
Me, I think.
Yeah,
So-
you did add it as well, right?
So the fundamental question here is if a piece of content that was previously published in another venue is included, okay, how do we recognize the original source?
And this is one like the people who generated the original content are aware and
Yeah, they are aware and willing, okay?
yep, okay.
But the key fundamental question, this will come up more and more if we burn the learner section, okay? Essentially, if we want to lift a piece of content from a location, another website, okay? That's it. And include it, okay? And essentially it's a derivative content, okay?
Right.
And the person making the thing, yes, okay? I would like a backlink, or I would like to something noted that this was originally published at that specific location, okay? How do we do that, okay? This is me asking, but frankly, it can be anybody else, and I really don't want to express an opinion on the topic. I am more on the side of it needs something done because this will happen more and more often, I think.
Yeah, I mean, my initial reaction is like having something that says like this content was originally shared by Y in X with the link to that original content is not just reasonable, but something we should do, right? Like it should be we're taking original content. It shouldn't just be like, hey, this is like ours. It should be like this came from here, right? And
Yeah, this is the reason. That's the ask. Okay.
okay,
There has been some discussions. I recommend you guys to read it, and
okay.
you can take a look. Okay.
So basically, the ask for the TSC is jump in there and comment, right?
The ask for the TSC is there was more or less an objection on this, and I frankly I think it's good for the TSC to express a recommendation because it also has some I don't know implications on what is considered derivative work and other bits. Okay, so it's generically it's is what it is. Like I think we should write it down somewhere, and this is the guideline, the contributor guidance on node.js.org, and that's it. Okay, but because it's
Right.
my
Okay.
because it was partially my article that was taken and cited, and there was some objection that they don't want to include the backlink, which I asked to. Okay.
Right. Right. Okay. So the
I am not
action.
expressing my opinion on the topic.
Yep.
My opinion is clear, but I recuse myself from that discussion. I just recommend if somebody else can take a lead on providing that
Right.
piece of governance, which should be fair, okay, and stuff like that.
Do we have a document in our collaborator guide or anything like that in terms of the website already?
It's written in, there is a collaborator guide in
Yep.
the website,
Right.
but there is not anything regarding on including content.
Okay. So that would be a PR, would be PR to collaborator doc in the website.
Collaborator guide _ guide in the website, yes.
Okay. Okay, well, I added my 2 cents to the issue itself, just suggesting that. And I think the idea of like having it documented as well does make sense.
It needs to, like, from my point of view, it needs to be a piece. I am from the piece of content. That piece of content needs to live on the Node.js website. Okay, so I'm fine
Yeah.
either way. Okay, I just need somewhere where that is written. Okay, can it even be written in the commit message from
Right.
what it matters to me. Okay, because I don't want to in the forever future somebody to show up. Oh, but you plagiarized the content from Node.js. Okay,
Right.
and I don't want that to ever happen, and I want it embedded in the as close to the content itself as possible. Okay,
Right.
this is if it is a public bank link, I would prefer that. If it's not necessary, not entirely necessary, the important part is making it exactly clear we have not like what's the source, the exact source from where things come from. Okay.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Okay, it's just
I added some comments. I added my own comments to the thing suggesting like that we document that and including like the process should include that we've documented that the original author is approving it, right? Like
exactly
maybe by getting you to approve the PR that includes it,
Yeah,
that makes
exactly,
sense.
exactly.
Like we now have a record that says we pulled in this content, the original author is credited and they have approved the PR, therefore we
Yes.
know we're okay.
Yes.
You know, otherwise we can't just absorb anybody else's content without consideration. I think it's at least that's my personal opinion.
It's
Makes lots of
legal.
sense.
It's essentially legal.
Yeah. Yeah. Even without getting into like licenses and whatever, even if we could, I don't think we should personally, right? I think
Yeah,
it's
no, that's another point.
Right.
But yeah,
Yeah.
it's frankly, if you take somebody like you are liable for a DMCA takedown notice, essentially.
okay. Okay, so we can see, I'll leave it on the agenda and we can see where that discussion goes. And if necessary, like it sounds like, the ask is for the TSC to potentially help drive policy. Maybe
Yeah.
it'll just happen, but if not, to get involved to help drive that. Moving on, just because we wanted to keep some time for the private section. Draft statement of work, that one I think actually I will just take off the agenda. I think we have, like, in the discussion, something that's in the rough thing we talked. I think we have consensus that we want to try and see if we can fund this. How we actually get funds is the next question, and also maybe like some tweaks to the statement of work if we do figure out funding, but really the next step. And I think, Matteo, maybe I'll send an email to Robin with you on CC, just asking if
Yep.
it's something the foundation can fund. I know they don't have a money tree as was the presentation at Node Summit, but I think we should ask, as opposed to assuming. And then, if the answer is no, then, we did have some discussions on funding, so we could see if, any of those kinds of approaches will help us fund this. So unless anybody else wants to add anything to that, I'll just skip that, I took it off the agenda. The next one, which is, let's talk about the CI situation. I think actually, well, that statement of work is kind of the next step on that, but I'll leave let's talk about the CI just on the agenda because I don't think it's resolved, and maybe good reminder. I did remove the next 10 tag or the agenda item from the ambassador program message and topics. We did have a good discussion the next 10 team meeting today, and we're going to PR in some more guidance on how to request topics to be added, the template, and some sample ones. And then we hope that that'll give us a little bit more structure ideas to people for topics they want to PR in, and also discussion on the PRs themselves. So I don't think there's anything to discuss here unless somebody wanted to add something. If not, then the last one is bootstrapping initiative to-dos. So package examples. I'm not sure who added that to the agenda. If somebody did, they could just jump in. See, Joy added it. So maybe I suggest we just leave that on the agenda to next time because we wanted a little bit of time for a private section. Okay. So at that point, I suggest we skip the strategic initiative for this week, and we'll go to the private section unless there's any other topics that we should chat about before doing that. Okay, if not, I'm going to stop the live stream.